contribute.
Since news of the suspected eavesdropping of the Garda Ombudsman Commission emerged, and events since developed to include serious allegations of Garda malpractice based on the complaints of Garda Sergeant Maurice McCabe, the uniform response of the government, that is Taoiseach, Taoiseach, Minister for Justice and the Fine Gael and Labour ministers, has been to close ranks to protect the top management of the Garda Síochána and to denigrate, undermine and demean GSOC officials and both Garda whistleblowers, Sergeant McCabe and now retired Garda John Wilson. This is not just because of the apparent close professional relationship between the Minister for Justice and the Garda Commissioner. This is because the Garda is the institution that, in this capitalist state, this government and its predecessors rely on, not just to deal with day-to-day normal policing actions like traffic management and crime investigation, but crucially to enforce the implementation of right-wing neoliberal economic and social policies such as savage austerity and the privatisation of public resources against the opposition of ordinary people. For example, this government and its predecessors used the Garda in the most disgusting fashion to brutally repress an entire community in Mayo which was opposing the writ of giving to Shell Oil, a fabulous natural resource of our natural gas wealth, with the endangerment of their community and environment. And there has been, in recent years, a tendency to criminalise protest and to use the Garda Síochána in a very brutal fashion to oppose legitimate protests by ordinary citizens in this state. And these and other actions of the Garda Síochána along these lines should also be investigated in a really independent way. Now, Sergeant Maurice McCabe has welcomed the appointment of a senior counsel to examine his dossier of evidence of malpractice and incompetence in the Garda after years of being victimised, isolated and slandered by certain senior Garda officers. And of course, it is a huge achievement for Sergeant McCabe that his detailed concern about wrongdoing within the Garda are now accepted after much personal suffering on his part as needing a major investigation. But appointing a senior barrister to look at a dossier like this is not enough. The victims of Garda malpractice that has been highlighted all support the claims of the whistleblowers. Shouldn't any serious investigative commission not involve them, involve other citizens who have been victims of malpractice, and indeed involve ordinary working people whose taxes pay for the Garda, rather than be confined to the exclusive law library, a bastion of the establishment? Now, will the Minister for Justice state categorically today that not only will the Garda whistleblowers be fully engaged with in any future investigation, but will the Minister guarantee that there will be no further victimisation of Sergeant McCabe? Is the Minister prepared to give that recommendation quite clearly here today, or indeed any other member, ordinary member of the force who brings malpractice complaints against superiors? Will Garda John Wilson be able to engage with the investigation? John Wilson has also been subjected to shocking pressure, including an individual who pressurised him to withdraw complaints against a senior officer on the erasing of penalty points. And that individual slandered Garda McCabe in the most disgusting fashion. And this individual was a senior judge practising in the courts. Will that be investigated? Now, the Labour Party, in particular, stands shamed by its slavish failure to stand for a totally independent investigation into what anybody could see were blatant abuses by sections of senior Garda management. Now, who will forget the spectacle of hapless Minister for Social Protection Burton here last Thursday in defence of the indefensible, as she hyper-verbalised and hyper-ventilated herself into quite a state, pointing her trademark quivering forefinger and flapping her hands in such a frenzy that we thought she might be airborne, as she desperately tried not to look over to the Labour benches here to see the ghost of her opposition past, berating past governments for much lesser political crimes. Democratic revolution. Here, look, the sections of the media have acted as a journalistic praetorian guard for the Garda Commissioner and management, undermining the complaints of legitimate whistleblowers. That's extremely consistent with the previous acts of independent newspapers, which sacked journalist Gemma Doherty for having the audacity to question why the Garda Commissioner himself was forgiven for penalty points. So not just the Garda needs democratic supervision, but the billionaire-owned media also needs to be subjected to democratic control of ordinary citizens to see if it could tell the truth and really represent the interests of ordinary people for a change.